Hello, everyone. Welcome to another video. Today, we're going to talk about the concept of belonging, and specifically how conflict and character raise the theme and issue of belonging in My Mother, the Crazy African, a wonderful story by Chimamanda Adichie, a Nigerian American author. So, the question first, everybody, is what does it mean to belong? Is it about where you live? Is it about, is it determined by what you eat, perhaps the language that you speak, or the identity that you choose for yourself? In the story, belonging is presented as not so simple. It's emotional, cultural, it's deeply personal. The story shows us how belonging can feel like comfort to one person, and it can feel like pressure or a prison to another. For Relindu, who also calls herself Lynn for reasons of belonging, belonging often feels like something she has to escape, like a prison. For her mother, belonging means holding tightly to Nigerian culture, even while living in America. And for her father, one of the most interesting characters in the story, belonging seems to be some sort of adaptive quality that he can use and manipulate to help satisfy goals, um, keeping a part of his Nigerian heritage while also adapting to life inside the United States. So today, I'm going to explore the theme of belonging as developed in the story, especially focusing on one specific passage. This is going to be a video of about less than 15 minutes again, so I can post it for free on YouTube. And the passage is about food and cooking. And this passage is important because food becomes more than food in this story. It becomes a symbol of memory, identity, a struggle over where and to whom each character belongs. So, moving into this idea of the story itself. Okay. Um, in the story, belonging is closely tied, as I said, to culture, language, family expectations, self image. Relindu is caught between these two worlds. She lives in America and she wants to fit in there, but her mother insists that Nigeria remains central to who she is. Early in the story, Relindu explains that when people asks where she's from, her mother wants her to say Nigeria, where Relindu prefers to say Philadelphia. She also calls herself, as I mentioned, Lynn instead of Relindu, a more Americanized form of her name. And she does this when her mother's not around, which is an important part of their relationship. These details show that for Relindu, belonging is about social acceptance, survival in her American environment. She believes that changing her name, accent, identity will help her fit in. But the story suggests that belonging is not just about fitting in, it's also about communities and traditions that shape a person. Think about your own communities and traditions, perhaps. Rolindu's mother sees belonging very differently, the mother, Chika. To her, identity is not something that changes just because you move. Nigeria remains home, and Nigerian customs remain valuable still. That difference creates one of the main conflicts in the story. Wants belonging to mean adaptation, while her mother wants it to mean preservation. So, let's look at a passage from the story. I'm going to leave this on the screen here, everybody. Because this passage about the mother's cooking, it's one of the clearest examples in the story of this theme. The narrator says that all her meals have a Nigerian base, but her mother has learned to adapt by substituting ingredients, okay? Baking potatoes for Edie, spinach for Ugu. She even improvises to make a farina cereal has the consistency of fufu, those dumplings or balls, until the father shows her where to find that cassava flour at the African store. It's a powerful moment, this passage here, because it shows that the mother's version of belonging is resistant and flexible. She refuses to let migration ease and erase that culture. even when she cannot find the exact ingredients she used in Nigeria. You see, she recreates Nigerian meals with whatever's available. That means belonging for her is not passive, it's something that she actively builds. Okay? She searches out those ingredients, for example, and she builds this identity in a new country. She transforms an American kitchen into a Nigerian cultural space. At the same time, the substitutions themselves kind of matter in this case, at least to our theme of belonging, because she's simply not repeating Nigerian life exactly as it was. Instead, she's blending memory with adaptation. That makes the passage especially interesting because the mother's not frozen in the past. She's adjusting, just like other characters in the story, but on her own terms. She accepts the change only when it still protects her Nigerian core. That's an important thing to focus on. That's why the line, all her meals have a Nigerian base, is so important. The base represents the foundation of identity that she refuses to lose. The mother's attitude toward food reveals much more than her cooking habits, though. It reveals how deeply she believes that cultural belonging must be maintained, especially within the family. She still grunts when Rolindu eats frozen pizza and fries, calling them such bad food. And she insists on making her daughter eat Nigerian soup and fufu. She even watches as Rolindu swallows, as if to see the balls go down and stay down. This image is intense in the story. It is an intense scene. And it shows that the mother is doing more than feeding her daughter. She's trying to keep her daughter connected to a Nigerian identity that she feels America is erasing. The act of watching her becomes symbolic. The mother wants Nigerian culture not just to be tasted, but to remain inside Rolindu. In other words, she wants belonging to be internal, embodied, and lasting. She wants it to continue on in the generations. The mother also connects belonging with language and dignity. Elsewhere in the story, outside of this passage, she argues with the father about serving Nigerian food to his colleagues and about speaking Igbo in her home. You remember that scene? She insists always that they should be proud of who they are, especially in this scene. She shows that her commitment to belonging is not just emotional, it's political and cultural. She refuses the idea that becoming American should require silence, embarrassment, or cultural surrender. Mother is a very strong character in this story. So the mother's identity is revealed as deeply rooted, proud, and protective. She belongs to Nigeria first, and she wants her daughter to carry that belonging forward. Whereas Rolindu experiences belonging very differently. In this focus passage, she describes molding the fufu into reluctant balls, and this is important. That single word, reluctant, is very important. It shows resistance, discomfort, and emotional distance from what her mother is offering her. She's physically present in Nigerian cultural spaces, but emotionally she's pulling away. This links to the rest of the story because Rolindu, as she says at the very beginning, she hates her accent, answers her father's Igbo with English, and often says she's from Philadelphia rather than Nigeria, as I mentioned at the start. She even hides her full name and prefers to be called Lynn. Think about changing your name as a result of wanting to be seen differently. All these choices show that she believes belonging in America depends on reducing the visible signs of her Nigerian identity. For her, belonging becomes a kind of performance, speaking differently, naming herself differently, and distancing herself from traditions that make her feel exposed. However, the story also reveals that this version of belonging is fragile. Rolindu wants acceptance, especially from her American peers, but that acceptance often depends on her suppressing parts of herself. She's, in fact, ashamed of the very things her mother is proud of. This creates an internal conflict, okay? An internal conflict. She wants to belong in America, but the cost is disconnection from her family, her language, and her heritage. Her identity is therefore divided. She's not fully at ease in either world. So Relindu reveals a view of identity shaped by pressure and insecurity, as opposed to the mother, who's more deeply rooted and confident. Relindu wants belonging to protect her from being seen as different. But in trying to erase that difference, she becomes alienated from her own roots. And this is very important to the character of Relindu. Now, the role of the father, I wanted to talk about this today because the father, while a minor character in the story, is crucial in the way that we understand the other two, the mother and Relindu. Because the father's role is quieter, but it's still incredibly important in this way. In this focus passage, he's the one who teaches the mother how to get to the African store. He does, he writes down his directions and she keeps them in the glove box, the store where she can find the cassava flour. This small little detail shows that he also has values and values cultural connection and participates in maintaining a Nigerian life in America. At that same time, the father often seems more willing than the mother to adjust to American expectations. The story explains that when his colleagues come over, he no longer asks the mother to prepare traditional foods. Remember that one scene, right? Instead, he has trays of cheese and fruit delivered. He also tells her to speak more to the guests and not to speak Igbo when they are visiting. These moments suggest that he sees belonging as partly practical. He's a very pragmatic individual. He's a professional. He's a doctor. He wants success in the country. He wants ease, the way that his communities in America experience life. And he wants that social acceptance in American professional spaces. So because of this professional life that he has a very different view of belonging. He sees it as a practical element of his identity. This makes the father a middle figure between Relindu and her mother. And unlike Relindu, his daughter, he doesn't reject his Nigerian background. But unlike the mother, he's far more prepared to soften or limit cultural expression. His identity is revealed as adaptive and strategic in a way. He belongs to both worlds, but he manages that belonging through compromise. So, in the story, My Mother, the Crazy African, to conclude, belonging is seen as a struggle between preservation, adaptation, and acceptance. The focus passage about cooking, the one on the screen, makes this theme vivid because food becomes a symbol of identity in the story. And the mother uses food to preserve Nigeria inside of her home in America. But Relindu, she resists that food because she wants to belong in America. And the father supports that cultural continuity, but he also adapts to the demands of his new environment. He's once again that pragmatic figure. So ultimately, the story suggests that belonging is not about geography. It's not about the places specifically or the locations. It's about what people hold on to, what they change, and also what they are willing to hide. Think about that. The mother believes belonging comes from honoring one's roots. Relindu believes it comes from fitting in. And the father tries to live somewhere in between. So together, these characters show that identity is in an immigrant family is never really simple. Remember, we talk about why we read stories, everyone, and that's to gain access to others' experiences. So you think about the way that an immigrant family is portrayed here. It's never so simple. And belonging, this issue, it's negotiated every day. This is what Adichie tells us. It's negotiated every day in our language, in the names and behavior, and even in something as ordinary as dinner. And that's what makes this story very powerful in my mind. There's a lot of elements of this story that are powerful. And it reminds us that belonging can be both a place of comfort and a source of conflict, especially when home, the idea of home, exists in more than one world. So to summarize, everybody, belonging's not a single answer, okay? It's not just one simple thing. It's not about geography. It's a constant negotiation. This is what Adichie tries to tell us. It's a negotiation between who you were, who others expect you to be, and who you decide to become. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you on the discussion boards.